They lured him into a false sense of love and family, then stripped him of everything he had. But what they didn't know was that betrayal is the one thing a mob boss never forgives. Sometimes, the deadliest people aren't strangers or rivals. They're the ones who kiss you goodnight, share your table, and wear your last name. This is the chilling tale of Dominic Moretti, a feared mob boss, who fell not by bullets or enemies, but by the ones he trusted most, his wife and her family. Before we dive into this twisted story of love, greed, and bloody revenge, make sure to subscribe for more gripping true crime stories like this. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the darkest corners of the human psyche. The streets of East Haven whispered his name like a warning. Dominic Moretti wasn't just a man, he was a legacy carved in steel, stained in blood, and wrapped in custom-tailored silence. By the time he was 35, he controlled half the city's underworld, the ports, the unions, the clubs, the high-stake gambling dens, and more than a few politicians who smiled for cameras and prayed he never called. But despite the empire, the wealth, the respect, or fear, depending on who you asked, Dominic Moretti was tired. Tired of watching his back. Tired of sleeping with one eye open. Tired of pretending the throne didn't get cold at night. What Dominic wanted more than power, was peace. And then came Veronica Caldwell. She entered his world not like a storm, but like silk, smooth, graceful, intoxicating. She wasn't like the women who flocked to him for the name or the money. No. Veronica was deliberate. Smart. Mysterious. A blend of classic elegance and modern danger. She wore confidence like perfume, and Dominic, for all his steel, melted in her presence. They met at a charity gala, the kind Dominic attended only to keep up appearances. He was drinking old wine and ignoring old enemies when Veronica walked in, dressed in emerald satin that shimmered under the chandeliers. She laughed at his jokes, challenged his ideas, and didn't flinch when someone whispered who he was. In fact, she leaned in closer. 3 weeks later, she moved in. 6 months later, they were married in a private ceremony by the cliffs of Montauk, no press, no guests outside her family, and no Moretti associates. Just Dominic, Veronica, and a promise he never thought he'd make. Everyone in Dominic's circle raised eyebrows. Leo Vitali, his consigliere and closest confidant, warned him. "You don't know her, Dom. You only know the version she lets you see." But Dominic, the man who once orchestrated a silent coup across 3 states, ignored the red flags. Because for the first time in years, he was in love. And love, that beautiful, stupid drug, blinded even the sharpest of minds. Veronica's family embraced Dominic like a long-lost son. Her father, Gerald Caldwell, once a respected businessman who'd fallen from grace, offered him investment advice. Her brother, Marshall, cracked jokes and tried to bond over whiskey and football. Her mother, June, sent him handwritten letters and home-baked pies. They were warm. Too warm. But Dominic, starved for normalcy, drank it all in. He opened doors, signed checks, handed out power like party favors, not knowing that behind the smiles were knives being sharpened. He thought he was building a family. But what he was really doing, was inviting the enemy through the front door. At first, it was subtle, the kind of changes you don't notice until you've already drowned in them. Veronica was persuasive, but never pushy. She'd trace her finger along Dominic's chest in bed and whisper ideas like dreams. "Caldwell Tech just needs a little boost. It's a smart move, Dom, imagine your empire with a legitimate face." And Dominic, who'd spent years laundering money through nightclubs and union deals, started to believe her. He wanted something cleaner. Safer. For her. For their future. For the little girl she'd soon bear, Alessia, their daughter who would grow up without knowing the war her father once fought to keep her innocent. So, Dominic shifted his operations, slowly at first. He let Veronica's brother, Marshall, oversee the tech company's finances. He allowed Gerald Caldwell, her father, to manage a string of new investments under a shell corporation. June, her mother, became the ever-available family liaison, showing up with ledgers and reports and fresh lemon pie. It wasn't long before Dominic began to let go of his usual caution. After all, they were family now. And what's power without trust? But what he didn't know was that every ledger was doctored. Every shell company was hollow. Every business trip Marshall took was a coordinated theft. Siphoning Dominic's wealth into ghost accounts. Offshore. Untraceable. Behind the smiles, the Caldwell family was orchestrating a financial war, the kind where bullets weren't needed, only signatures. They knew exactly what they were doing. Gerald never forgot the day his own empire collapsed, blaming Dominic's father, Enzo Moretti, for a deal gone sour decades ago. He carried that bitterness like a disease, and taught it to his children like scripture. To the Caldwells, this wasn't just greed. It was revenge. And Dominic, powerful as he was in the streets, never saw it coming. They lured him out of the shadows and into the light, only to burn him under it. One account at a time. One lie at a time. Until the king, once untouchable, was unknowingly handing over the keys to his entire empire. It started with a call at 5:17 a.m. from one of Dominic's lieutenants. The kind of call that doesn't just wake you, it pulls you from your sleep like cold water to the face. The feds are at the warehouse. Dock 9. They're not asking questions, Dom. They're seizing. Dominic didn't panic, not at first. He was too seasoned for that. Raids happened. You paid who you had to, cleaned up what you could, and moved on. But this wasn't a raid. This was a message. Within 24 hours, every account Dominic thought he controlled was frozen. Offshore holdings. Gone. The Swiss accounts. Emptied. Even his clean fronts, the bakery, the laundromat, the car service, were all flagged by the IRS. The real blow came when Leo Vitali walked into his office, quiet and grim. Leo had been with Dominic since the beginning, the kind of man who wouldn't flinch at a gun pointed to his head. But this time, his silence said more than words. "I warned you," Leo finally muttered, dropping a file onto Dominic's desk. Inside were transaction records. Dozens of them. And at the center of every one, Caldwell Tech. Veronica's family. Dominic's family. Dominic felt something crack in his chest. Not like a bone, something deeper. Something that once trusted. Once loved. He called Veronica, but she was at a retreat. He called Marshall. No answer. Gerald was in meetings. June sent a text that said, "You've always been so generous." That's when the silence became deafening. His own crew began to question him. His capos were restless, murmuring about weakness, about vulnerability. Rivals, once terrified of the Moretti name, began inching back into territory they'd long abandoned. And Leo, loyal Leo, eventually walked out. "I can't clean this up," he said. "And I won't die for a man who handed his throne to the enemy." In just 3 months, the empire Dominic had built with blood and steel crumbled like wet paper. He wasn't feared anymore. He was mocked. Laughed at. A king without gold. A lion with no teeth. And somewhere out there, the Caldwells were celebrating. Dominic Moretti had fallen. But he wasn't done. Not yet. Because in the ashes of a broken empire, something darker was rising. Not power. Not pride. Revenge. Dominic's suspicions were no longer whispers, they were alarms. His accounts were empty. His properties, seized. And the people he once trusted? Gone. He stopped confronting and started investigating. He hired a private investigator outside the mob's network, someone discreet, loyal only to cash. What came back shattered whatever hope he had left. Veronica's name was on every document. Her signature. Her approval. She had authorized the transfers. Set up the fake businesses. Helped her father and brother drain Dominic's empire from within. The final crack came one night when Dominic returned home early. From outside the bedroom, he heard Veronica on the phone. Laughing. He still has no clue. Daddy says once the divorce is through, we're done with him. Dominic stood in the dark hallway, expression blank. No anger. No grief. Just clarity. They hadn't just robbed him. They humiliated him. That night, he didn't speak a word to Veronica. He only made one phone call. It was time to awaken the man he buried the day he said, "I do." Dominic's revenge began with precision. No loud war. Just quiet execution. Marshall Caldwell was first. Dominic lured him with a simple lie, a fake investment opportunity at one of his old vineyard properties. Marshall showed up cocky, smug, thinking Dominic was desperate to rebuild. In the wine cellar, Dominic handed him a glass. "To starting over," he said. The moment Marshall swallowed, Dominic struck, a zip tie wrapped tightly around his throat, dragging him to the cold stone floor. No screaming. Just a struggle. Then silence. He hung the body from a ceiling beam, and pinned a note to Marshall's chest. "For loyalty, there must be blood." 3 days later, Gerald Caldwell started his car outside his office. It exploded before the engine fully turned over. Investigators found a scorched envelope tucked into the passenger seat, inside, a photo of Marshall's corpse, and a line. "Your son paid first. Now you follow." June Caldwell was last. She was found at her dining table, slumped forward, wine glass untouched. The bottle had been laced with cyanide. A single rose sat by her plate, with a handwritten note. The teacher of betrayal must drink it too. No suspects. No witnesses. Just silence. And Dominic? Still in the shadows. Watching. Planning. His final judgment was reserved for the one who wore his ring. Dominic waited. He didn't kill Veronica in anger, he let her unravel. First, he cut her off without her knowing. No access to hidden funds. No allies. No protection. He moved quietly, one step ahead, watching her crumble under the weight of fear and confusion. She buried her family in less than 2 weeks, Marshall, Gerald, June, all gone. One by one. No explanations. No arrests. Just silence. And Dominic never said a word. He held her when she cried, studied her face when she begged for answers, and kissed her forehead when she shook at night. Then, one evening, he made her favorite dinner, the same one they had the night he proposed. She came home drunk, exhausted, trembling. He poured her wine, watched her eat, and finally said, "I know everything." Veronica froze. Her fork clattered to the floor. "I loved you," he said calmly. "Even when I knew you didn't love me back." She broke, begging, weeping, trying to explain. But there was no justification for betrayal that deep. Dominic walked her to the bedroom, the room where they once dreamed of building a life. He handed her a letter, detailing every account, every lie, every signature. "I was never blind," he said softly. "I was just hoping you'd stop." Then he kissed her one last time. She was found in their bed, shot twice in the chest, once in the head. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. Just a bullet casing on the pillow. Etched with the initials. DM. Veronica Caldwell's body was discovered at dawn, blood-soaked sheets, 3 clean shots, and a single casing etched with DM resting on her pillow. Their neighbor heard the gunshots and called 911. This time, Dominic hadn't covered his tracks like before. Maybe he didn't care. Maybe he wanted to be found. Detectives stormed the Moretti estate within hours. The place was eerily calm. No guards. No alarms. Just Dominic, seated in the study, sipping whiskey in his black suit, waiting. He didn't run. He didn't resist. "I suppose it's over," he said, standing calmly as the cuffs clicked shut. In court, Dominic didn't speak much. His lawyers tried insanity. The prosecutors brought bank records, weapon tracing, and surveillance from the vineyard. The jury took less than 4 hours. Guilty. 5 consecutive life sentences. No parole. But even behind bars, Dominic Moretti was feared. Inmates avoided him. Guards didn't look him in the eye. His name, once whispered in fear, became the final lesson in betrayal and blood. As for Alessia, she was sent to live with extended family, far from her father's shadow. She never spoke publicly about him again. Dominic never asked for forgiveness. He never showed remorse. He simply sat in his cell, silent, staring at a photo of a woman he once loved. Dominic Moretti's rise was forged in blood. His fall, in love. He built an empire from the shadows, only to be destroyed by the very people he let into his light. The betrayal didn't just bankrupt him, it broke him. But in the ruins, he did what he knew best, he enforced his own justice. And though it cost him everything, his freedom, his legacy, even his daughter, Dominic chose vengeance over silence. Not because he wanted to win, but because he refused to be forgotten. His story reminds us that sometimes, the most dangerous man isn't the one who kills without feeling, it's the one who loved too deeply, and was betrayed too completely. If you were in Dominic's shoes, betrayed by your spouse and her family after giving them everything, would you walk away? Or would you seek revenge, even if it cost your freedom? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching this haunting tale of power, betrayal, and consequence. If you found Dominic's story gripping, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. We post intense true crime stories every week that explore the darkest corners of the human mind. Until next time, stay aware, stay safe, and never ignore the red flags closest to home.